Welcome. This is Echidna Gate 1 guide video. This video contains both normal and hard mode patterns. For the eye level, normal requires 1620 and hard requires 1630. Battle items. There's a part where two parties separate. The party that has weaker stagger takes dark grenade, and the other party that has stronger stagger takes whirlwind grenade. I will cover this part in detail later. For the last item, atropine. Ally skill. In this raid, the raid leader can use a feature called Ally Skill, Echidna, Avele, and Thar. There are 5 spaces, and each skill requires 3 spaces. After you use the skill, in 20 seconds, you can press the button again to use a follow-up skill which requires additional 1 space. I will cover when to use each skills later. The boss is human type and he is tauntable. At the start of the raid, pass through the mobs and reach where the boss is. The boss has 180 HP bars, and he's invincible. You can see 2 mobs connected to the boss. Party 1 kills the upper mob, and Party 2 kills the bottom one. If both are dead, then Avele uses a skill and staggers the boss. The boss becomes attackable, but he has a shield. The raid leader presses Ctrl Z Echidna by looking at the boss. Then she will shoot laser to that direction, which does a lot of damage. Remove his shield and DPS him down to 162 HP bars. Until then, there's a lot of hindering factors that makes the fight chaotic. 1. When you pass through the mobs at the start of the raid, one of the mob can stun you for a long time. This attack shows blue telegraph before it happens, so dodge it when you see that. 2. At the start, you will see Shadow of a Giant Dragon passing by. The dragon breathes flame after he passes, which does massive damage that can kill you. This pattern happens periodically, and it can hit different layers. Watch where the first shadow is passing, and if it's passing over where the 2 connected mobs are, then wait until the breath finishes and then go in. 3. There are small dragons that tries to grab you from the sky by showing yellow telegraph. If you get grabbed, then it tosses you from the air, which doesn't do that much damage. At 162 HP, you will have to track the boss in given time, which is shown on the left top side. Kill the mobs on the way and secure the path. You will see a giant dragon. Defeat him and move on. When you reach the boss, he requires a stagger check. Succeed the stagger and free DPS. If the ally skill has 3 spaces, then the raid leader uses Echidna for more damage. At 135 HP, the boss teleports to the center, then he disappears by surrounding the field. All 8 players will be randomly separated to 2 groups. One group will see horizontal telegraphs, and the other group will see vertical telegraphs. One of the telegraphs will show different color. In the normal mode, 4 players just have to gather in that line. Then they will get a shield and avoid the attack. But in the hard mode, both of 2 groups must overlap together. In short, all 8 players have to gather in the crossing point to get the red shield. You can gather by looking at the minimap to see where the other group is. If you don't get the shield, then the players will take massive damage with slow debuff. The telegraph happens 4 times in a row. On the 4th telegraph, memorize the direction of where the odd color line is pointing to. In the normal mode, the boss requires co-op counter from that direction, which requires at least 2 people. In the hard mode, the boss requires co-op counter from the direction of the other group, so both groups should type the direction in the chat to let each other know. Succeed the counter and free DPS the boss in the center. If the co-op counter fails even from one group, it's a raid wipe. Around 110 HP, Armin starts to talk, and a lot of mobs try to gather in the field. When Armin speaks, then the raid leader presses Ctrl X Avele by sticking close to the boss. Then she will stagger the boss and does massive damage in a circle range. When the mobs gather in the field, then press Ctrl X again to use a Vayle's follow-up attack that hits the field in AoE range. This will kill all the mobs in the field. If you fail to kill the mobs in time, then they will self-destruct, which does massive damage to the players. The mobs are tanky, and some of them can stun you, so it's better to use a Vayle's follow-up skill. Around 90 HP, a cutscene happens. Then another boss joins the raid. She will charge for a wipe attack. The party that has a whirlwind grenade should go to 5 o'clock direction and press G key to hop over to the other field. The boss requires a stagger check. Throw all the whirlwinds and stagger her. This stagger check is tight, and if you fail, then it's a raid wipe. After succeeding the stagger, the goal of both parties is taking down the HP of the bosses to 50 HP. Whichever party reaches 50 first, the next gimmick happens. On the way to 50, the female boss periodically teleports to the center and shows butterflies spinning. You will also see AoE attacks either in horizontal or vertical. This AoE attack happens on the other team as well. If the butterfly rotates to clockwise and the direction is horizontal, then the safe zone is center part of horizontal. If it rotates clockwise in vertical, then the safe zone is center part of vertical. If it rotates counterclockwise, then the safe zone is the side edge part of corresponding direction. In the normal mode, the butterflies spin clockwise all the time. This AoE attack does huge amount of damage that can kill you, so the female boss side should let the other team know the direction of butterflies and AoE attack. If either of the boss's HP reaches 50, then the next mech happens. The female boss becomes invincible and disappears by surrounding the field with red fog. You have to kill all the mobs fast as possible. If you do, then you will see either red or black smoke from the center. You have to call out the color to the other team. On the other side, the boss will have a purple shield that retaliates all the attacks, so the players on that side should stop the DPS. One player will get a line. The boss will aggro to that player. This player gets slow debuff that stacks. If it reaches 5, then all 4 players will be able to see objects with either red or black smoke. The objects are hiding somewhere in the field, and you have to be close to spot them, so players should spread in a wide range. The goal is to destroy the object that has the same color of smoke from the female boss side. If you do, then the red fog from the female boss party disappears, and you will see the boss requiring stagger check. Throw all the whirlwinds and stagger. This stagger is a time attack. If the other party finds the object too late, then the stagger will fail, which is a raid wipe. If the male boss side attacks the wrong color object, then that's also a raid wipe. If the slow debuff stack reaches 10, then that player gets imprisoned. The imprison requires lots of hit, so he becomes lethal. To prevent that, other players can take the line by rubbing it, then the debuff resets from 0 stack. If you succeed the stagger on the female boss, then she turns into a snake and destroys that field. That party should head to 7 o'clock and press G key to evacuate. By the time this happens, the male boss charges for a wipe attack by stretching one hand. You have to remove his shield in time, so the raid leader on that party uses a Vayle and her follow-up skill. A Vayle's attack does more damage when the target has shield. Also, all 4 players should use Atropine. If you remove his shield, then that's the end of the whole mech. Make sure to give the raid lead to the male boss party if the female side has the lead. If you fail to remove his shield in time, then that's a raid wipe. In the hard mode, the boss retaliates attacks on his side, so hit from his back or front side. After the mech, if his HP is under 55, then a cutscene happens. The field gets surrounded by red fog. If you go outside, then you will receive massive damage. In the normal mode, you just have to take him down to 0. But in the hard mode, there's an object on 12 o'clock direction. This object periodically AoE attacks that does massive damage to all the players with incoming damage increased debuff, which can stack. To prevent that, a player has to interact with the object by pressing G key. Then he gets a debuff that stacks fast, which can reach up to 100. He will also get a higher chance of getting aggroed. Before the stack reaches 100, you want to return the debuff to the object by interacting again. then that player will not be able to take the debuff for 1 minute. If he interacts again by mistake, then he will die, so the other person should take the debuff instead. Normally, you assign the role to 3 people including 2 supporters. Other than that, you just have to take the boss's HP down to 0, and that's the end of the whole raid. On the way, the leader uses Last Ally skill as either a Xena or a Vele to DPS the boss. Among the normal patterns, the boss periodically assigns puddles on the players. The puddle does a lot of damage, so all the players should gather to put the puddle in one place. Because of this, the field becomes smaller over the time. If there are too much puddles, there is a way to remove them. If the debuff from the player who got the object reaches 100 stacks, then he gets killed by the boss, and this removes all the puddles in the field, so you can let one player sacrifice if the fight becomes long. Periodical patterns. Between 130 and 55 HP, there are ally NPCs that help the players. The boss periodically tries to absorb them, and when this happens, a script from NPC comes out. The goal is to rescue them from the absorption. If you rescue them, then the NPCs use emote and all the players get 10% attack buff. If you fail, then the absorbed NPCs turn into mobs that do AoE attack. There are 3 kinds of patterns. 1. The boss points his hand to one player and tries to absorb all the NPCs in that cone range. The target player should aggro the cone to where there are no NPCs. 2. The boss teleports to one NPC with other 3 clones and tries to absorb him. This pattern can be countered. The one that glows red is the real one, so go to his front and counter. 3. The boss summons green fog that shrinks to the center. If the fog touches the NPCs, then they get absorbed. All the players should spread and tank the fog on the direction where the NPCs are. When too many NPCs get absorbed, then the boss does special pattern. The field gets surrounded and the players get a puddle which slows their movement. They should put that in the outer side. Then the boss does pizza pattern for several times that has narrow safe zone. If you get hit by it, then you receive massive damage with incoming damage increase debuff. Stay in the safe zone until it ends. Co-op counter. This pattern happens below 55 HP. A red orb grows in front of the boss and explodes. AoE attack happens for 4 times on all players. Then he requires co-op counter that needs at least 2 people. Dodge the AoE attacks and succeed a co-op counter. Normal patterns. I will only cover some of the important ones. Striking 2 times. The boss slashes 2 times and strikes the ground. Then he strikes the front again. Stick very close to his back to dodge all of them. AoE slash. The boss slashes everywhere which does massive damage. At the end, he slashes the nearby. When he does this, you want to dodge the slashes in the mid-range since the blade explodes at the far range. Vykas orb. 2 players get orb marks and 2 players get puddles. 2 orbs follow the orb mark players. If it hits a player, then it explodes in the outer side which does massive damage. So they should make some distance and then take the orbs. Puddle players should move around since an attack happens on where they are. Spin. The boss spins to a player which requires a counter at the end. Counter the boss when he tries to strike. Sometimes the boss stops spinning and then continues spinning by changing the direction. In this case, he doesn't require a counter. Deskaluda. Lines point the players and the donut attack happens at the same time. He does this for 3 times. At the end, he slashes 2 times and requires a counter. The donut happens in the different layers. You have to dodge the line by moving horizontally and dodge the donut by moving vertically, so just move diagonally to dodge all of them and succeed a counter. Female boss counter. When the boss stretches her arm to the front, she requires a counter. This counter has a long window. Small grab. The boss swipes in a small range which grabs only one player. If someone's grabbed, then the boss strikes him for several times. Large grab. The boss pulls back his sword and grabs the front. If a player got caught, then he slashes that player. If no one's caught, then he swipes in a large range which grabs all the players which ends up being slashed as well. Stay away from the range. Small earthquake. The boss back tumbles and strikes the outer side. Then he earthquakes the inner side and follows up with outer AoE attack again. Large earthquake. The boss jump strikes to a player which earthquakes in a large range. Just immune the earthquake by using spacebar or just move out. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching and hit the like and sub if you liked it. See you guys on the next video. Stay Giga Chid.